Ford BlueCruise version 1.2 hands-off review, more automation, improved operation. The newest BlueCruise hands-free driving software update narrows the gap to GM and Tesla. Scott Evans, writer, Rennes de Mondel, photographer, Mar 15, 2023. In the race to offer customers true hands-free, partially automated driving technology, there are only 3 real competitors today. Tesla's system is the best known, and offers the greatest number of features and widest operational environment. GM's Super Cruise system is, in our opinion, the safest and best driving, and offers nearly as many features as Tesla. Ford's BlueCruise technology lags behind the other two, but the latest version 1.2 has narrowed the gap. BlueCruise formally launched in the middle of last year on Ford EVs before spreading to certain gas-powered Ford and Lincoln vehicles. Just a few months later, the company announced a software upgrade that would increase BlueCruise, and Active Glide, as it's known in Lincoln's, capabilities. BlueCruise 1.2, as it's officially known, is already being installed at the factory on 2023 Ford Mustang Mach-E and will be uploaded to all BlueCruise-equipped vehicles, new and existing, via an over-the-air, OTA, software update later this year. We got our hands on a 2023 Mach-E to try BlueCruise 1.2 and its new features for ourselves. What's new? Ford is touting 3 big new features in this update: lane change assist, predictive speed assist, and in-lane repositioning. The first semi-automatically changes lanes on the highway when the driver taps or fully engages the turn signal lever. The second automatically slows the car for curves and changes in the speed limit. The third automatically shifts the vehicle to the other side of the lane when passing a big rig or just someone crowding the line to provide more of a buffer. Thanks to updates to the look of the digital instrument cluster and infotainment system in a previous OTA update, it's now easier to understand when BlueCruise is actually active on a Mach-E. Design changes to the digital instrument clusters in other vehicles remain to be seen. Previously, Ford used icons and messages to indicate whether you needed to have your hands on the wheel or not. Now, it's as simple as looking at the color of the screen. If the whole instrument cluster is blue, you're in hands-free mode. If the instrument cluster is white, you're in hands-on mode. Steering assistance and lane centering still work in hands-on mode, so the obvious color change makes it immediately clear which mode you're in. Help changing lanes. Of the 3 new features, owners will find the lane change assist the most interesting to use. You can activate it anytime BlueCruise is engaged, whether you're in hands-on or hands-off mode. Once activated, the instrument cluster tells you it's preparing to make a lane change, exterior sensors look for a gap in traffic in an adjacent lane, and the car smoothly and relatively quickly changes lanes. In our testing, lane change assist generally acted quickly and decisively, even going so far as to move over in front of cars, closing the gap if they're far enough back, and approaching slowly enough. Occasionally, though, it would take a long time to think about making a lane change, even if there was a large gap and no car coming up from behind. We found no pattern to the hesitation, so we chalked it up to the software being cautious and double-checking its sensors. It also occasionally cancelled a planned lane change when conditions changed, like someone else moving into the gap. At no point did it make an unsafe or ill-advised lane change, though we found it did occasionally confuse other drivers when it hesitated to make a lane change and just kept driving on with the turn signal flashing. The system will also suggest a lane change when the car ahead of you is moving slowly and traffic in other lanes is moving faster. We also found it would change lanes into an exit-only lane and continue to operate in hands-free mode until the exit lane began to leave the freeway, at which point it switched back to hands-on mode but did not cancel cruise control. Drivers need to do that last part manually, either by pressing the brake pedal or the button on the steering wheel. Hands-free mode also disengages on flyover ramps connecting one freeway to another. Both Tesla and GM have had lane-changing technology for some time now, and both also offer fully automatic lane changes, with the computer deciding when to change lanes and doing so without waiting for the driver to manually activate the turn signal. Tesla's system is also capable of remaining active on freeway flyover ramps. GM's system, meanwhile, refuses to automatically change lanes into an exit-only lane, requiring the driver to take over first. Give me some space. In-lane repositioning is one of those clever features you don't realize you want until you experience it. The satisfaction of using it is born of the way it mimics a semi-unconscious human behavior. Most people, when overtaking big rigs or lane marker huggers, give those vehicles a little extra space, skewing as far within the lane as possible from them. We do the same thing for distracted drivers who are weaving from lane line to lane line rather than staying in the middle of their lane. In-lane repositioning just automates this behavior. It's a feature subtle enough that we had to specifically watch for it in action. Whether it was 18-wheelers or that guy in the Tesla looking at his phone, BlueCruise would simply shift our car a bit in the lane to give them more space. Look closely at the road and you can just tell you're not in the center of the lane anymore, or watch for the picture of the car in the instrument cluster move off-center between the virtual lane lines. The automatic steering intervention that shifts the car in the lane is gentle and fluid, so much so you don't really feel it unless you have your hands on the wheel. Often, we wouldn't notice it had activated until it was already in the process of moving the car back to the center of the lane. GM also includes this feature in its software and it works equally well. Easy there. Predictive Speed Assist is the only new BlueCruise feature we turned off. Utilizing map and camera data, the vehicle will automatically slow down, temporarily, for sharper corners and will adjust the set cruise control speed when the speed limit changes. That first trick we like, the second, not so much. Adaptive cruise control systems that automatically slow for corners have been around for a few years. It's a nice feature. Rather than throwing the occupants around by entering a sharper corner at higher speed, the car automatically slows down slightly until the vehicle is through the corner, just as many human drivers might, then returns to the original speed. We may disagree about which corners require slowing and by how much, but the concept is a good one. We were happy with the way BlueCruise slowed for sharper corners during our test drive. Automatically changing the cruise control's set speed when the speed limit changes is an idea that sounds good on paper but is frustrating in the real world, especially when you have the cruise set above or below the speed limit. The simple fact is, human drivers almost never immediately slow down or speed up when they pass a new speed limit sign. In many places, traffic doesn't slow down at all when the limit changes. The Ford's nerdy rule-following behavior, though scrupulously lawful, is unexpected and unpredictable for other drivers and causes confusion. Partially remediating the problem is the adjustable tolerance setting. This allows you to pre-program the automatic speed limit adjustment to 20 miles per hour over or under the posted limit. This way, if you have the cruise control set to 80 miles per hour in a 70 miles per hour zone and the speed limit drops to 55 miles per hour, depending on your offset, the car won't automatically slow as much as it would have otherwise. It can still be annoying if none of the cars around you are slowing or if you don't want to slow, but it's better than not having the option. Note that you need to have predictive speed adjustment activated before you can adjust the tolerance. Frustratingly, Ford has grouped these features together under one setting, and it's either on or off. We'd very much prefer the ability to toggle them separately and keep the slowing for corners feature on while turning the automatic speed limit adjustment off. With Predictive Speed Assist off, we were less impressed with BlueCruise driving. When entering sharper bends on the freeway, the hands-free mode tended to make one of two minor mistakes. Either it would initiate the turn slightly too late, causing a jerkier maneuver than necessary, or it would begin the turn at the appropriate time but wouldn't quite turn sharply enough, causing the vehicle to drift to the far side of the lane while going around the corner. The vehicle never left its lane, but it felt a bit like riding with an inexperienced driver. General impressions. Otherwise, we found this new version of BlueCruise to be a better driver than previous iterations. In the past, BlueCruise occasionally had trouble finding the center of the lane and would slowly ping-pong back and forth between the lane lines on a dead straight highway. That misbehavior hasn't entirely been eliminated, but it happens far less often now and the drifting around the lane isn't as pronounced. For one of the systems billed as truly hands-free, we found the number of disengagements a little disappointing. Fairly often we found the vehicle telling us to put our hands back on the wheel and going back into hands-on mode. This did keep us engaged and attentive, but we were also doing more hands-on driving on the highway than we expected to. More hands-off time would do more to make us feel like this tech is worth the price tag. On the other hand, those disengagements were much shorter than before. We drove the Mach-E with the new software on the same route we'd driven with our long-term F-150 Lightning that uses the old software, and found that the older version disengaged hands-free just as often but stayed off for much longer. The new software typically re-engaged hands-free mode after only a few moments, unless there was a mitigating factor like road construction. The system really proved its worth when we needed to change settings on the big infotainment screen or take a sip of our drink. Per our stopwatch, the driver monitoring camera behind the steering wheel would give you 5 seconds of eyes off the road time before yelling at you to watch the road, which was more than enough to change the radio or climate settings. A number of navigation functions remain locked out while the vehicle is in motion, but Ford's voice control feature worked so well at recognizing natural language that we didn't mind using it to enter a destination or search for a specific roadside restaurant. We did appreciate that when BlueCruise needed to disengage hands-free mode, steering assistance, and lane centering stayed on. This meant that if the vehicle was in the middle of a turn when it needed to switch to hands-on mode, it would keep turning itself until, and after, we took over. In the event you're distracted and don't take over immediately, the car will keep steering itself as it ratchets up the notifications. First, it's just dinging sounds and messages on the instrument cluster, but if that doesn't work, it'll start tapping the brakes to shake you to attention. Ignore those and it'll eventually slow the car to a gradual stop in the lane with the emergency flashers on. Why not pull to the shoulder, if there is one? Most cars don't have the sensors needed to determine whether the shoulder is safe to drive on. The only thing we'd add is increasing warning volume, like GM has.